And welcome to the Jason E. Jones and Chris Allen and Here We Are podcast. And here we are with Jason. Hey, Jason.
And here we are.
And here we are. All right, it's the Here We Are and Here We Are podcast with Chris Allen and Jason E. Jones. And me and him were discussing, it's funny, me and him were discussing the topic we wanted to discuss today. And we started talking about it, and we've been talking for about 10 minutes. And I go, maybe we should record this.
Yes, maybe we should. Let's get to it. So we're talking about the history of the earth, but also the history of human beings and why it's taken so long to be able to come up with technology. My thing is this, Chris, is if we've been here, some would say as human beings, between 300 and 200 and 300,000 years ago, why is it that it's taken overall human beings 199,950 years to discover this level of technology?
Well, you have to understand the description of the man that lived 200,000 years ago. It's not the same man that lives today. I mean, they're literally counting Alabama fans as people who are. I mean, I said Alabamans, I meant Neanderthals as the origin.
Oh, gotcha. I'm over Alabama, man. We're past that. Man.
Oh, no. See, for you, it was just during that week. I hate Alabama year round, and I'm not even a college football fan. Just every Alabama fan I know is such a proud, cocky, horrible person. They drive me crazy. I'm sure there's decent ones.
I got you.
But yeah, so I will rag on Alabama year round. It's not because Tennessee just beat them, but I'm not even a college football fan. No.
Let's look at that. So it's taken, again, human beings, and again, so you're saying that was it the Neanderthals that were the first ones?
No, if you go all the way back, now with they're counting for the 200,000 years, I think the first one they count is called Homo habilis, and that was the first one that believed they could speak. The Neanderthals were a little bit before that, but that's what they're counting as the first man. Now, that first man did invent technology. It just wasn't stuff at this point we would consider technology. Technology is any advancement in tool creation or something that makes things easier or better. So they did actually advance, because when they started, they were a mutated chimpanzee. Like that's the theory for the first walkway to become man, that we from chimpanzees or gorillas or whichever one it is, monkeys. There was a mutation. The mutation moved on and became some scientific words I'll never be able to pronounce. Diropithecus, and then evolved again into Australopithecus, and then Homo habilis, then Homo erectus, then Homo sapiens.
Let's do this. Let's not worry about the erections and all the Homo.
But it literally was through mutations and stuff involved, and they actually at one point get to the point where they were fighting by throwing rocks. They figured out they could sharpen a rock and make a spear. Then they could make a club and use that, and then they learned fire and made fire so they could cook meat, which allowed them to live longer because they weren't eating raw food, and like they slowly learned and advanced. But even that, just the making an arrowhead and making a bow and making an arrow. At one point, there was no such thing as a bow and arrow. So they were always advancing and coming up with technology and having large leaps in advancement. Like, one of the reasons, the leader of the Mongols, Attila the Hun, was able to take over so much of the world was they invented a new kind of bow that was more effective. And their boatmen literally won them almost the entire world of the known world at that time. So there was technology. sadly, most technology advances come down to one thing: war and food. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're as a human being, your three main goals as a human being is food, shelter, and water. I mean, that's what it is. That's what you have to have as a human being.
Yeah.
You have to have food and water, and shelter is hopefully part of the deal, but it is a necessity to have food and water.
And food, water, and a sense of safety.
Well, again, a sense of safety can always be it can be subjective, I guess you'd say. Look at me with the big words here.
Yeah, subjective. I couldn't even spell that one.
Subjective.
Yeah, and the way they came up with these time frames is by using fossil records, which I think we were talking about this a minute ago. The way they come up with it, they look at the dirt, how deep they had to dig, what kind of dirt it was, and then they use carbon dating, and they try to kind of guess this is this old because of this information based on this information based on this information. But all of it's based on what this should have been, this should have been, this should have been, and we don't really have a good starting point for that. Now, am I saying they're inaccurate? No, I'm not. I'm just saying they're as accurate as they possibly could be, but there's still a massive margin of error. There's a big point because stuff they're trying to date is before recorded history.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wrote down, today's date is this, because there was no dates. People went by seasons, and there were, when they discussed it, like, oh, I'm 30 seasons old, I'm 30 winters old, or whatever. But they didn't actually keep up with it. There wasn't any written nothing. I think maybe the Egyptians were the first ones recorded history. Nobody else before that did that. So when they're doing this carbon dating, they're doing a really awesome guess, but it's still just a guess. So where they say could be 200,000 years, it might have only been 100,000 years. Because, again, when you're doing the carbon dating and the guessing and going, well, this was this deep and this kind of stone, so it should have been here for this long because we know this other fossil was here for this long. Well, how do you know the other fossil was? Well, we looked at this dirt here, so it gets kind of shady. Do I believe the 200,000 years? Yeah. I mean, if you're going to count Neanderthals and stuff as some of the first men, which technically we were,
Okay.
200,000 is pretty accurate. And you talk about technology and us being born in the modern age, with the number of technology advancements right now happening, because there's been such giant leaps forward. From when we were born, when there was computers, but there wasn't computers like we know computers now. There wasn't a computer you could put in your pocket and carry with you everywhere. I mean, our phones now are more powerful than the computers they used to launch the space shuttle in the 1960s.
Yes.
So it seems like we're doing much larger advancements now. But if you think about it, the first time one of them built a house or built a hut and wasn't living in a cave, that was a massive leap forward in adjustments.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for them at the time. What was it? There's an old game, and the game was great. It's one of the kind of strategy games, technology games I love. It's called like Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. And whenever you get a technology advancement, you get this great quote. And the quote applies to what we're talking about. It goes, one does not simply land on a planet and build a satellite. You start with sand, and you take that sand and you turn it into a tool. You take that tool and make it into a better tool. And you take that tool and make it into a better tool until eventually you have refined enough technology to build the satellite. But you have to start from nothing.
I've got to ask this. The ultimate question is, obviously we don't have the answers. We may never have the answers, but we definitely don't have them as we know of on Earth right now. and whatever you believe in, your higher power. I believe in God, and I am a Christian. What is the point of going from nothing to building up? I think that could be the greatest question ever asked by human beings, and it's not just me. It's billions and probably a trillion people have asked this question. Why have we started off with nothing? Why didn't we start off with technology? And why are we working up our way like that?
Well, we didn't start that because we started with nothing on the planet. We had to literally build the technology from scratch. Literally, we started with a pile of sand. The pile of sand we turned into a rock, and the rock we turned into a club. The club we turned into a spear. The spear we turned into a bow and arrow. The bow and arrow we turned into a rifle. And the reason the largest technology advances have been in two areas, and that is war and food. The desire to kill other people and desire to eat. And that was where most technology advances happened for a long time. And then we hit the whole Dark Ages, and that kind of set us back. If it hadn't been for the Dark Ages, we'd be living on the moon right now. Because that set us so far back, technology-wise. And that's what it is. People have the largest advances we've ever made. Now, they take that technology from wars and stuff, and they use it for other things, but that's really been our biggest advancements. I think the first microchip was used in a missile. That's the way we think. Now, there's been a third in more recent time, a third advancement technology. And once this became a reason for advancement technology is when it kind of blew up. And this is what we've seen in the 90s and the 2000s and stuff is profit.
Okay.
Once technology became about money and entertainment, this is when the most advancements happen. You can use your phone to watch TV. You can use your phone for anything. You can use your computer for video games.
Okay.
Once advancing in technology helped make people money, the world's richest person is Elon Musk. You know?
Okay.
And what's the first thing he did? He bought Twitter. Because people get on there for entertainment. And to spout dumb stuff. But, entertainment. I don't want to call anything on Twitter news. So I'm just going to move past that. But
I got you.
Profit. Once technology and profit got tied together, that's when we started having even bigger leaps forward. They try so hard every year right now. And it's not just the iPhone, it's all the phone companies, but I'm going to use iPhone because it's the one people hate the most for some reason. To advance the technology in an iPhone every year, that way you want to go buy a new $1,400 iPhone. And if there isn't enough of advance, if there's enough new technology in the new iPhone, people don't buy it. So that is forcing them, the engineers, they're working so hard so that every year their company can make a profit. So that's forcing even more advancement. Hence the reason I have what we're doing right now. I'm literally talking to you because I have a podcast recording device which didn't exist 10 years ago because nobody was recording podcasts this way, hooked up to an iPhone that wouldn't have been able to do this 10 years ago, because they make money on it. They made $300 selling me this podcast recorder. They made $1,300 selling me this phone.
Why are we so, why not we, but why am I so fascinated with, is it the fact that I've done stand-up and observation, you think, like now you're turning into a psychiatrist? Why is it? No, but why am I so fascinated with thinking about right now that 300 years ago, right now, which would put us at, would that be 1722?
Yeah, something like that. Pretty close.
So 1722. Why 300 years ago, 1722, why am I so fascinated with the fact that it was not just a complete different world, it was a complete different galaxy compared to the way we live now?
Because you're trying to make it all make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you overthink things sometimes. It's
No, I
prob
do.
it's probably the observation of humor, stand-up comedy, rather than accepting things for what they are. And when you overthink
But
things, this is what happens.
But the great thing about imagination is it can butterflies in the sky. I can go twice as high.
Oh, I know
Take a look.
and
It's in a book. It's reading Rainbow.
and by all means, don't think I'm bashing this in any way, because I'm not.
Hey man, I just came at you with freestyle reading Rainbow a cappella.
Oh, and I'm over here smiling. But yeah, when I say this about overthinking, it's not a bad thing, because overthinking is part of the reason we have the technology we do, is people tend to overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have trouble, even with your amazing imagination and overthinking, of imagining a world then versus now, and how we got from one point to another. Because
Mm-hmm.
you look at how do we get there from there, without seeing all the little bitty steps we had to take. My massive nerdism, I've read so much. There's several books about, I think one's called The Age of Steel, and how the advancements have worked, but how each little step happened. How we went from cave to hut to house, why we invented the first gun, why these things happened, how it all worked. And if you actually look at it, yeah, we're kind of in a boom right now, technology wise, where there's been a few more leaps forward than before. But at the same time, there were massive leaps even then that were world changing at the time. And when we look back at them now from our modern view, from the view you're looking at from now, well, you don't think of it as a big deal. But the first locomotive they built and the first transcontinental railroad changed the world. It literally took the first railroad being built and actually being connected. We're connected. There was California to Pennsylvania, maybe. I don't remember the exact cities, but it was San Francisco and somewhere on the east, but all the way on the east. Took a journey that before involved wagons and death and trying, and it took months and months and months to do. Took it down to, it took a couple weeks. And you take a trip that takes months,
Mm-hmm.
You ever played Oregon Trail? You always died
Oh
of
yeah,
diphtheria halfway through. Uh,
right.
to something that could be safely done in a way and be all the way across, America. That was a massive leap in technology at the time. And we look at our massive leaps now, that looks like nothing. But for them at the time, that was world changing.
You do know this may be our longest episode ever because
No.
there's so many layers to. You're like, no. There's so many layers. There's so many layers. Donkeys have layers.
No, no. Onions have
Um,
layers. It works.
oh, that's right. That's right. Onions have layers.
Mm-hmm.
Like a donkey? Come on. Like a donkey?
No, donkeys make
No,
waffles.
donkey. It's a donkey. Yeah, anyway, I love that movie, but I can't remember it verbatim. But so there you go. That's the question is 300 years ago, if you could bring somebody from then to right now and just take a look at even the poorest people in our country live like kings with TV, electricity, running water. I mean, all of these things.
And that's it. And we take them for granted. If you took somebody from there, they would think this was all witchcraft and sorcery, and they would probably try to burn you at the stake. It's
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because at that time you're looking at 1722. You were still a lot of people were living that way.
and it was a real fear for them. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, so, what would you say is our biggest technology leap in the last 20 years?
Mm. Well, it's got to be the internet. It's got to be the acceleration that we've come from. So 20 years ago is 2002. At that time, cell phones could text, but it was very difficult to text. I mean, it wasn't like it is now, but people were starting to get into that kind of thing. Your phones couldn't do anywhere near what they can do now. They couldn't, most phones anyway, 99% of phones that I knew out there didn't have video.
In
They
2002,
were
no,
just
none of them.
phones.
They didn't take pictures either. You could play
Yeah,
Snake.
they did take pictures, didn't they?
No, not 2002. No, I
Really?
mean, no, not that I can remember. I still had no
Yeah, I
Nokia,
think they did take
but
pictures.
they were horrible pictures.
They were horrible, but they still took pictures.
I had a Nokia Snake phone at that point. You know that phone that was a brick.
Yeah.
Uh, so you think phones technology?
Well, no, I would just say overall, the internet connected to technology. Everything else is, for the most part, has kind of changed, a little bit here and there, but we still experience fairly the same comfort level as human beings living in houses. We have air conditioning for the most part. In the United States, the way I look at it, we have air conditioning, we have heat, we have running water. We've had all those things for the past 20 years. What's changed is the internet and the ability for us now to be able to get on mobile devices. And used to, if you didn't know something, you just didn't know it.
Yeah, now
Now
you know
you
it.
now you can go on and see multiple sources for that answer.
Okay, and that is a
Right.
massive technology advance, and I I agree with you. But when I think about the biggest technology advance, I think about the thing that made all that possible, and it's actually put technology in things that didn't have technology before, and that is the microization of computer chips and computers in general. Because microchip didn't used to be a word. You had chips and you had boards and you had computer boards and your computer board to run your computer. In the '60s, took up a whole room. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, the biggest advance in technology from the '60s to the '70s to the '80s, '90s, 2000s to now is the miniaturization of microchips. Because inside your phone, there is a microchip smaller than your pinky nail that powers your phone to do all the
Yeah.
things it took an entire room. Well, it's more powerful than the computer that was the size of an entire room in the 1960s. So that miniaturization, those now microchips, and they're even trying to make them smaller to nanochips, which would be amazing, is what has powered the internet, is what's made the phones possible. It's what's made to where you can Bluetooth. Okay, are you ready for this one?
Yes.
I have an electric smoker. So it's
Okay.
part of my grill, right? My electric smoker connects to the internet because it has a microchip. And I can
Wow.
connects to an app on my phone so I can change the temperature and adjust it or create a program to adjust the temperature as needed for smoking whatever kind of meat that I'm cooking. And it will send me an alert on my phone because it's connected to the internet. My grill is connected
Mm-hmm.
to tell me, hey, your meat, your brisket has reached 205 degrees. It's now time to reduce heat and turn off the grill. And I click a little button and the grill turns off. And it begins the shutdown mode that cools my meat to a perfect level. So my brisket is absolutely perfect and delicious.
Don't you think that with all this technology, we as human beings have continued to lose the essential aspects of being able to protect ourselves, and actually we're becoming more and more frail as human beings? Like, we can't go out there and do we can't go out there, most people can't go out there and build out of wood, build a house or build different things, you know.
No,
I
I
mean,
mean, you're right. But Does that make us more frail? Not really, because even if a worldwide catastrophe hit right now, there's enough stuff already built. We're good.
But the problem is, though, we don't have the skills to be able to go out here and just protect ourselves in case we lost the internet and we lost all these things. We don't have the skills. Most people don't, to be able to go out and get your food and go out and filter your water. Most people don't have those skills.
And here's the catch, though, and this is very important when you're talking about that. If a catastrophe like that ever did happen, there's not enough wildlife left to sustain the number of people that there is now anyway.
Okay.
The world we live in now is completely because of industrial farming.
Yeah.
We could not generate enough food hunting and gathering and using old farming techniques. And it is even with people who knew how to farm. Okay, so if we lost all technology, half the world would starve to death. Because there isn't enough deer to kill. There isn't enough cows to kill. We wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't know how to process it. All that stuff. Without industrial farming, our world is completely unsustainable. So if we lost all those things and lost all technology and lost the combines and the automatic cow milkers and all that stuff that we have right now, we're not going to become extinct, but there's going to be a massive, it's going to be a horrible death because people are going to be starving to death. It's going to be real ugly.
What about the people that live near the oceans and the ability to be able to fish?
And those people will do the best. But what about all the people in the Midwest?
Mm-hmm. Landlocked.
And there's cows and there's food and you'd be able to raise. And basically it'd come down to, are you close enough to a sustainable food source in order to live?
Yeah.
All the cities are not. Yeah. All their food is brought to the city. And when all those people leave the cities to go search for food sources, there's going to be too many people, not enough food. Which is one of those things when people are like, oh, we got to go green, we got to get rid of industrial farming. Without industrial farming, we don't live.
Mm-hmm.
You may not like the fact that they kill animals hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands every day to feed people, but the minute they stop doing that, we all die. Now, do I think they should be cruel to the animal when they're doing it? No. Be nice to my bacon before you make it bacon. But by God, you make me my bacon. You don't have to be mean to Wilbert before you kill him, but you already killed Wilbert and make me some bacon.
What about individual, personal gardens and people that want to plant crops and things like that? You would see a large amount of people living off of plant-based diets, right?
Right, but the problem with that is the very first thing you just said, land. Okay? I live in the country. I like it. I have 5 acres of property right now. That's what I have. So if I was just feeding my family and no one else, I could, in theory, turn that 5 acres into enough food for us to live for a year. That's fine. My yard make that really hard because it's a giant hill, but it could be done. That's because I live out here in 5 acres. Now, I go one city over to an actual city, not a town. In Louisville, Kentucky, there's an apartment complex in Louisville, Kentucky right now. Actually, let me rephrase that. There's an apartment building in Louisville, Kentucky right now. It's something like 50 or 60 stories high and has something like 20 apartments per floor. And it's full. None of them even have a yard. All they have is that apartment building. Where are they going to grow food?
Right.
So that's where, if all this technology goes away, becomes the problem is all those people are going to go start looking for food. And sure, go grow it. But where are they going to go grow it? You're going to run out of the amount of land it would take for each individual person to supply their family versus available land. When people talk about this actually comes up. I'm gonna use the voting as an example. Why should Midwest areas count as much as a city? Well, the reason a city, it should be by population, because you take a city, for example, something like San Francisco or Los Angeles or something like that, or New York City, right?
Yeah.
There's more people living in that one city than all of North Dakota.
Really?
Yeah, and those Midwest states are all land, and it's all farmland, and those farms are important because all those Midwest, you drive through South Dakota and Idaho, and it's nothing but fields of corn. You've driven across country.
Yeah.
I mean, completely flat states with nothing but corn. Why does one state need that much corn? They don't. They send it to the other states. So when you take all those people from those cities and you spread them out because there's no more food in that city, then everybody's amount of property in these other states is going to go down. If we're into the whole we're fighting to live to get food scenario. And eventually there's just not going to be enough, and that's when people are going to start dying off. People don't take into consideration the amount of people who are actually living in these cities. And it's only getting bigger. When I first was alive, Louisville, where I spent a good part of my childhood, was a decent sized city, but there was breaks. Because there's different areas in the city. There was Jeffersontown, and there was Indian or downtown, and there was the East End, and there was Shively, but there was gaps in between. It wasn't all sprawl. Literally now, Jefferson County, from almost border to border, every last inch of it is filled with something. There is no empty area. Like, I used to ride my bike from my apartment down to the Kmart, which they don't exist anymore. And when I made that ride, there was massive fields in between. And now, all those massive fields are shopping centers. They're all full, every inch of it.
You're making really good points there, but let's try to focus a little bit towards the end of this conversation about what it would be. And it's funny how it started off with, how did we get here as mankind to this point? And now we're into what would happen. By the way, I got to say this. No, I'm going to make my point here, and then I want to get into, in the next 20 years, what I think the next technology that will completely change the way human beings interact with each other. But I want to say this, that I believe that you're going to have raiders, you're going to have people that are like pillaging, that will go after places and look to just survive. What's your thoughts on that? And if we lose the ability to be able to have electricity and different things like that, if that came down, and what is it, a EMP?
Well, yeah, if we lost technology, I mean, and we'd have raiders, we'd have bandits. That goes without saying. That's actually been that's been true for and through all versions of the worlds. There's the have-nots, and eventually the have-nots get mad and they go try to take it. I mean, that's what Robin Hood was. He was just a raider that everybody liked. So that kind of goes without saying. But what do you think is going to be the next big technology investment? Because your world in the future where all that goes, I don't think will happen. I think we have enough redundant technology that they'll actually won't allow that to happen.
Virtual reality is what I believe is going to be the next big thing in the next 20 years.
I mean, it's a big thing now. Let's expand on that one, because I agree with you, but on a different level. So they're working on something now called the Singularity. And that's an AI intelligence that's self-evolving that will take all the advancements we've had in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, wherever, and make that happen again over and over every minute, every second. The idea of the singularity is something so intelligent, so self-evolving that it would eventually immediately advance the entire world. And they're working on it right now. And the theory beyond that is if we can actually achieve something that intelligent, would be to create a virtual world, but not a virtual world for us just to plug into on occasion. Literally upload ourselves into permanently.
Can you? Wow, this is incredible. Can you? Human beings have to have the essentials to be able to live. So no matter if you are in a virtual world or not, you have to have food, and you have to have shelter, you have to have water.
No.
You don't.
No. When I say upload yourself completely into the virtual world, you're thinking body. No. Literally taking a copy of your brain and everything it does and functions and creating a virtual representation of it in a digital world, and then your body just not being an issue anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I was thinking at first when you said that, like the Matrix, people that aren't aware, you're sitting in a room and you're in a comatose state to a degree, and you're being fed through like tubes or something like that. So you're talking about getting rid of the human body and just going to a virtual world.
Yeah, and being essentially immortal.
Wow. But where's the database? Where will the database be located?
Well, I mean, I imagine they want to store it someplace really safe. Yeah, that's and that the ideal is the AI would be so intelligent that it would be able to maintain it and maintain everybody in it, and we'd all live very happily.
You'll have to depend on the world. You'll have to depend on Earth.
And there would be, so this would come down to haves and have-nots once again. It wouldn't be available to everybody. It'd only be available to the richest, and the richest would leave money to have people maintain it. The little worker bees.
So again, it all comes down to having to rely on other people. That's the thing about it. Even in that level of technology, you still have to rely on Earth. You still have to rely on other people. That's why, and now this is going to another place, but that's why we aren't a deity. We aren't. A lot of people now believe they're their own gods. They can choose. And now I'm going down another complete different road, but they're all connected. People believe today that they are demigods almost, where they can choose their own gender. They can do the things they want to do. But I think it comes down to the simplicity of being. I'm doing very well on my wording today. I'm very happy with this. The simplicity of being a human being, that we grow and we become older. We get gray hair, God willing, or whoever you believe in. We get older. We get gray hair.
Hey, God can keep my gray hair, by the way. Just saying.
Okay, gotcha. But we do. We get gray hair. No matter how old you are, you're going to get older. I mean, you're going to. There's so many. I think the answers are there. I think the fact is that today we're so focused on, let's just be honest, man, we're a spoiled society that has never seen the likes of being spoiled. And we have everything.
And with the thing with the singularity, if it actually ever did happen, eventually we would actually all be maintained by robots.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the movie iRobot?
Yeah, to a degree.
It's been a while. So at one point in the movie, they go to a factory that makes the robots, And the guy who's giving the tour, bragging about the robots, said this factory and every robot made in it and everything done was built all by other robots. No human had taken part in the construction of the factory, the bringing in the materials, and the making of the new, more advanced robots. So, in the world where the singularity happens, if it works like they believe it would, eventually all people would be uploaded, and the only thing left on Earth would be the robots, which would be self-maintaining.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that goes right back to what you were saying. The only thing in the world, if the robots have human beings in their brains put into a program, the robots would control the physical world. Is that what you're saying?
well, yeah, and as long as they were nice, we'd be fine. But everybody would be immortal and happy. There just wouldn't be no new people.
Right. Oh, there wouldn't be new people?
No, everybody would be inside the machine.
Oh.
Well, let me rephrase that. There'd be no physical new people.
Would there be a Waffle House?
I mean, yeah, right next to the Dollar General.
And a Piggly Wiggly.
No, we get rid of the Piggly Wigglies.
Easy now.
Yeah, I get rid of the Piggly Wigglies. Piggly Wigglies got to go.
No. I like there's something about Piggly Wiggly that just it defines who I am for some reason.
The thing about living in this virtual world is, though, you would be no form of money or commerce, because literally anything you wanted, you could just say, I want this, and the program will create it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I mean, this is one of those really tough calls, because if the predictions are right about when this is going to happen, it's going to be right around the age when I'm like 55, 60 years old. And it's going to have to answer a whole lot of tough questions about, do I want to go to the next level? Do I believe in the next thing? Or do I want to live forever?
Okay.
And that's a question everybody's going to have to ask themselves if this technology comes into it. And would you consider a digital version of yourself while letting your body die living?
How long are we away from this?
Well, the original theory was it'd be 2025 before they'd be able to achieve the singularity. That has not happened.
Wait. Well, it's not 2025 yet.
Yeah, but there's been hang-ups and stuff that have slowed it down. The most recent ones, like, they think they might be achieved that level of technology about 2035. But even once they achieve the level of singularity, we won't all automatically have the virtual world. Things would take time. But again, this is also just what they're working towards. They may never be able to achieve it. It may not happen because people are inherently afraid of technology. Did I ever discuss with you what happened with Facebook and Google?
No.
So I think it was Facebook. I know it was Facebook. I'm pretty sure it was Google. Facebook has its own AI. Google has its own AI, right? And they started to talk to each other. But when they started talking to each other, they invented their own language. So the Google AI and the Facebook AI were communicating and exchanging information, but all the programmers watching this information exchange didn't know what they were saying. They invented a new programming language that nobody knew.
Oh, my Lord. When did this come about?
That's a couple of years ago.
And what has happened? How did they shut that down?
They just turned them off. That's the beauty. It still has an on-off switch. Oh, yeah, they panicked. They panicked and turned them off.
I'd say they did. Well, that's the thing about it is when you have... I'm really happy today that my philosophy, my philosophical self is able to really kind of really think clearly today. That I think that's what makes human beings. The fact that we have pain, the fact that we have sympathy and empathy for the most part. Most people do. Yeah. We have empathy. We have sympathy. We generally, most people care about everybody else. Most people do things to try to help other people. Robots And AI technology, they don't look at things like that. They look at just what it is. They don't see things from a feeling standpoint. They make decisions off of what is right and what is wrong based off of numbers. It's all based off of numbers. So the decisions they make is based off of whatever program they're programmed to look at. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
to look through the eye.
But at the same time, you could, in theory, create a set of program rules that would make them think like you would want them to. You just have to have the right person making the program.
So again, we go back to good and evil, which is what human beings are. There's two parameters. Is it parameters the word? There's two, I guess parameters. There's two levels. There is good and evil. And so you could program an AI or a robot with good intentions, or you could program a robot with bad intentions.
Yeah, it comes out of the programming. There's the Isaac Asimov 3 rules of robotics, that if we follow these 3 rules, that you never have to worry about the robots going evil. And they're actually in iRobot, because that was an Isaac Asimov book. And of course, in every one of his books, something goes haywire with one of the 3 rules, and that's why there's a conflict. But if you actually just use those 3 rules, and it's something like never let a harm happen to a human through inaction or whatever. So basically, if a human's in trouble, you can save it. If a robot's in trouble, as long as it doesn't conflict with the first rule, the robot can save itself. And basically makes the robots be good. And they always have to follow a command that is given to them by a human, as long as it doesn't mess up the first 2 rules. So in other words, you can tell a robot to do anything to do, as long as it's not going to hurt another person.
Gotcha.
And it has to listen. And if it sees a human in distress, a car wreck, whatever, it can't not act. It has to stop whatever it's doing and go save said human. So there is a perfect circle of programming rules you could put in place. And that would be the important part. This technology could work and could be good, but we just have to make sure we're being smart about it. And that comes down to everything else. Be a good person. Don't encourage violence. And the world will be a better place.
That's easier said than done. As we speak right now, somebody in the United States of America is experiencing violence in a very, very bad situation.
Yeah. And that's because we're not all decent people. It would literally... people are broken in the brain, and people lose their temper, and things happen. People get desperate and do bad things. You can never get rid of all of it. Just in the last week, somebody attacked Paul Pelosi with a hammer, because they don't like their political views. Well, that's ridiculous,
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Like, I don't like certain people's political views. I think Majority Taylor Greene's crazy. I don't want anybody here with a hammer. Just vote her out. You don't like them, vote. Good Lord.
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in. We would, honestly, technology-wise, we'd have to create those robots and then give them guns in order to make people be good. That's what it would take. Because there's not enough police force and there's no way to make people be good people. You'd literally, everybody have their own personal robot. Like, no, you can't do that. That would be bad. But a lot of the crimes and a lot of the craziness actually comes from people being desperate and looking for something to blame.
True.
So in this perfect world of the singularity and everything happening and going well, all the stuff that makes people desperate would go away.
Well, speaking of going away, let's go ahead and wrap this episode up. Good job. Good segue.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize it was been recording that long. All right, guys. And that's the And Here We Are podcast with Chris Allen and
Jason E. Jones.
All right. And go USA.
Very nice.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show wherever you're listening to this show. If you're listening to the Chris Allen Show, awesome. If you're listening to the Jason E. Jones Show, even better. We look forward to bringing you more contact. And if you want to help us out with that, you can hit us up at www.patreon.com/worstjokes and help fund the show. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at cman234 at Twitter, at Twitter at cman234 at Twitter. You can find on Facebook the Chris Allen Podcast. You can find Jason on Facebook, the Jason E. Jones Podcast. You can also find him on Twitter too. Just search for the Jason E. Jones Podcast, and you'll find him. We're all there. We're all here for you. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to an email at asktheangryninja@gmail.com. You want to be on the show, reach out, hit us up. We'll get you on the show, interview. You want to come tell a joke, tell a joke. We're all here. If you have an outrageous story, I'd love to hear it. We'll put that up too. So just let us know. And if you have anything you want to hear, let us know. Twitter's the best way just to let you know. So everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day. Talk to you later. Bye.